Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Writing with Subtext. Today, I want to show you how you can quickly build a brand new story based on a pre-existing story form. So let's say, for instance, you're not sure exactly what it is that you want to say. You're not sure what you want to communicate to your audience, but you do know that you liked how another story worked, and you want to do the same thing, just with different storytelling. In other words, West Side Story is the same exact thematic structure as Romeo and Juliet, but it takes place in a completely different place, completely different storytelling. So we're going to do the same thing here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop into the story forms that are in Subtxt. They're about 560, 580 unique different structures. So for instance, the structure of Glory communicates something completely different than the narrative structure of Blackberry. Same thing with Vengeance. It's not the same 16 beats every single story. They're actually different depending on what it is that you're trying to communicate. So for instance, let's say you liked Twister, but you wanted to do it about meteor storms instead of tornadoes. So you want it to be a bunch of astrophysicists running around chasing meteor storms to see if they can somehow stop climate change or fix climate change or something to that matter. So I just dropped into the story form for Twister, and you'll see it's got everything down here. This is the entire story form, all the different thematic parts that go into it. And what I can very easily do is I can just click build a story. It'll ask me to confirm it, make sure this is the kind of story that I want to tell. And then I just tap build new story, and it will open up my stories page, warm up the servers, and then start to add in all the specific narrative bits to make it possible for me to create a story. And once it's complete, I can simply go up here, tap into it, and here we go. We have a new complete story built from Twister. For some reason, the plot goal is getting a wife. I'm not sure that's exactly what we'll be going for. What it's doing is this is your first indication of storytelling. So in the same respects that in Twister, it's about getting those balls to fly up into the tornado. This is another illustration of a goal about achieving something or obtaining something. And then you can see this is going to be the same exact story form that is for Twister, but it doesn't have any storytelling to it. It's got some ideas here, some random things that it came up with that we can change. But what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to go into the idea here, and it says, what do you want your story to be about? I'm going to open the brainstorming box here, and I'm just going to say a group of meteor storm chasers. And what this is going to do is it's just going to give me a random story idea devoid of any kind of structure. So a group of adventurous meteor storm chasers find themselves caught in a life-threatening pursuit when they're pursued by a violent gang of criminals. That's a little cheesy. So I'll just run it again, get something a little different. Team of scientists where its ultimate destination promises the potential for revolutionary discoveries. Little do they know that a mysterious force is tracking their every move, determined to prevent them from reaching their goal. All right, at least this is not a criminal gang, and it's not so much like Twister. People won't be able to tell the difference. So I'm just going to add that in there as my basic story idea. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one of Subtext's narrative agents go through and generate the complete story for me. And what it's going to do is it's going to take this idea, take a look at this story form that I have from Twister, and then it's going to create the 4 through lines of a complete story, which would be the plot, the main character's personal baggage, the obstacle character who comes in and challenges the main character to grow, and then the relationship, which is usually the relationship between the main and obstacle character. So I'll go back into the idea here and ask it to start generating. And then here we go. So you can see the narrative agent's working on this new story built from Twister. It went in and did the pivotal players, which would be the main character and the obstacle character. They're the pivot point between character and plot. And now it's extracting the 4 through lines from that very basic idea. So it's going to do its best approximation of what that could be. We can always go in and change it, but I just wanted to show you how you could very quickly build up something. And then if you don't like it, you can go in and change the different through lines. So the idea is that you're building a story with the AI, agent and collaborating with it to get the kind of story that you want. And even if you don't know what it is, it might give you ideas that you can then build upon. So it's just wrapping up. It's going to do the relationship story here, and then it'll blend everything together. All right. So it's all finished. I can tap into it and let's see what we got. So then just based on that idea, it went through and filled in these boxes here. So it gave me a plot. It told me what the main character's all about. It invented some obstacle character and then created a relationship. And it usually does the relationship between the two of them. And then this at the top is the synopsis. So a lot of the way that Subtxt works is underneath the surface, the subtext, you have your rich thematic appreciations of it, and then you can summarize it to have a more blended form, which is what most people are used to. So this is the complete story. So it's taking that basic idea of just meteor storm chasers, and then there's some mysterious force, and then the story form for Twister. And it came up with, led by Dr. Nate Davis, a renowned scientist and leader haunted by a past failure, a team of scientists and adventurers embark on a daring mission to follow an unprecedented meteor storm. Racing against time and the unknown, the team navigates through dangerous space terrains and unpredictable meteor showers, all while being tracked by a mysterious force that throws obstacles in their path. Dr. Addison Miller, a brilliant but stubborn scientist, challenges Dr. Davis's decision, pushing him to confront his fears and insecurities. Their differing viewpoints often lead to heated debates, testing the strength of their professional relationship. However, as they face the challenges of their mission, they learn to trust and rely on each other, leading to a deepening of their relationship and a mutual understanding that transcends their initial differences. All right, so a basic sort of competitor thing. And you can see Dr. Nate Davis is the equivalent to Joe to Helen Hunt. Haunted by a past failure, her dad flew out through the top and she's completely obsessed with tornadoes. And then Dr. Addison Miller, he's a brilliant but stubborn scientist. He would be the Bill Paxton character that's challenging her. And then their marriage got changed into a professional relationship. The plot is pretty basic. It's like the first half of that. That's the objective story. And the main character thing line, we have a little bit more here. A renowned scientist and leader of the team is haunted by a past failure where he lost a crew member in a similar expedition. This personal baggage weighs heavily on him, causing him to second guess his decisions. It's somewhat similar, but different than the Helen Hunt thing because it's storytelling on top of it. And then Addison, she believes in taking risks and pushing boundaries, often clashing with Dr. Davis's more cautious approach. Her provocative nature and different viewpoint act as a catalyst. Okay, so Addison is the member of the team who's the brilliant but stubborn scientist. Nate is the main character. And then they have that professional relationship. However, as they navigate through the challenges of their mission, they learn to trust and rely on each other. This is totally fine. But if I wanted to, and I wanted to get maybe a little bit more romantic sort of aspect to it, I could just hit develop and it'll bring up this particular relationship story through line. And I can say to Muse, can you please add in a romantic relationship between them? So it starts out professional and turns romantic by the end. And that is a way of taking what is there and manipulating it to be something that is more interesting to me. And Muse will come back and rewrite it. Dr. Davis and Dr. Miller start off as colleagues. Their differing viewpoints, however, as they navigate through the challenge of the mission, they find themselves drawn to each other. And by the end of the mission, they've not only achieved their professional goals, but also have found love. Well, that's actually quite nice. I'm going to take that, paste that in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that to redo the synopsis here by clicking this summarize button. And it will take those 4 through lines, blend them together in the way that you would when you're writing the story. And then you'll notice here at the end, as they navigate through the challenges of the mission, their differing viewpoints and shared experiences spark an unexpected romantic connection. Brilliant. And I have my complete story here. It's got Dr. Nate, Dr. Addison. And what it's also done is it's gone through each of the 4 through lines and talked about the general area in which conflict is happening in the story. In the objective story, The objective story domain is in physics, so it's very much about the physical conflict that comes through, uncovering the mysteries of the unknown universe. So they must navigate through dangerous gravitational fields, asteroid belts, and other celestial objects, using their understanding of physics to calculate trajectories and make split-second decisions. So it's like Twister in space. That's what it turned out. The main character, so his thing is challenging beliefs, where in Twister, Joe was obsessed with tornadoes. She just got obsessed with it because she lost her dad to it. This one is about the internal conflict challenging his own competence and leadership skills. So this requires him to challenge his own negative beliefs and regain confidence in himself. So he has really low confidence, and challenging those beliefs as to who he personally believes he is going to be his particular obsession. So because of that past failure, now he's built up this belief of who he is, and whether or not he can work through that will be the rest of the story. And the person that's going to challenge him to grow out of that would be Dr. Addison. Her obstacle character domain area of conflict is being in a bad situation. Dr. Addison Miller is a scientist who, due to a rare genetic condition, is unable to physically withstand the long-term effects of space travel. Despite this, she's determined to contribute to the mission and has taken on the challenge, knowing the potential risks to her health. Whereas Dr. Nate's personal problem is his lack of confidence and his belief that he's not very good. Here we have somebody who has a rare genetic condition who can't really be out there, but is still trying to work through it. And then that's the kind of challenge. So while one is stuck in the mind, one is stuck physically, and that's the area where they're going to clash personally. And then finally, their relationship is engaging in psychotherapy sessions. That's a little weird. The complex relationship between Dr. Davis and Dr. Mel is further intensified by their engagement in psychotherapy sessions. I mean, that might be interesting that maybe as they're chasing through storms, there might be some sort of version of psychotherapy that's going on. And that's kind of interesting because in Twister, his fiance is a therapist. And so they have some of that stuff that's going on there. So you can see how that would play into it. And maybe we could use this and work through it. Or if I didn't like it, I can always just randomly find a different illustration of psychology. Tricking a group, that doesn't seem too interesting. No, let's see. Controlling something's thoughts. Being envious. Maybe they're envious of one another, or they're envious of people who have better relationships. And by being envious together, they end up growing closer together. So maybe if there's another competing team like there is in Twister, and their shared envy of them, the jealousy, is a ground from which they can grow closer together. We could always revisit that, redo this whole psychotherapy to be more about that manner of thinking and those sort of psychological dysfunctions going on as being the ground where they grow in their relationship and grow closer together. So that was just a brief introduction to how you can take a story form of a pre-existing work, in this case, something like Twister, just jot down a quick idea. It's wholly different theater, ended up being in space, Twister in space, and then extract the complete story out of it. So objective story, main character, obstacle character, relationship story through line, which is a great starting point to then go through and illustrate all the various story points and story beats within a complete story. So I hope that gave me an idea of how you can leverage Subtxt to quickly build out your next story. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, I will see you next time.